All right, continuing our SEC preview with the LSU Tigers, who last year, Dalton, had the best offense in college football, led the nation in EPA per play, had the Heisman Trophy winner in Jayden Daniels, had the best receiver in the country in Malik Neighbors, had another first-round receiver in Brian Thomas Jr., but yet they still lost 3 games because we'll get into that defensive issues they had last year, but still a really good team heading into next year, even after losing 3 first-round players in Jayden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, and Brian Thomas Jr. Elite offensive line we'll get into in a little bit. Added some really nice weapons in the transfer portal. Garrett Nussmeier has flashed, but there's still questions on that defense, man, which we'll get into in a little bit. But I think the biggest strength of this team, Dalton, is pretty easily their offensive line. One of the best offensive lines in the country. I've seen many people say it is the best offensive line in the country, and honestly, I can't hate on it too much, man. They have the best tackle duo in the nation, and Will Campbell, who we'll get into in a little bit, the best tackle in the country. Emory Jones, who could also be a first-round pick at offensive tackle as well. And they have a pretty good interior offensive line as well. They bring back both their starting guards, have a new center, but their center was a highly rated recruit coming out of high school. So this offensive line, man, is loaded, and it should be a unit that really helps out Garrett Nussmeier as he transitions into being the starting quarterback for the Tigers.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, everybody's going to look at LSU and say the biggest issue, well, they lost Jayden Daniels and these weapons and a new, you got basically a new offense. They lost Mike Denbrock too, right? Leaving for Notre Dame, their offensive coordinator. So a whole new structure. But when you have an offensive line like this, it can really, really help, especially with a guy like Nussmeier, who doesn't move basically at all like Daniels does, right? He's not a rushing threat. He's a true pocket quarterback, which is something they've had in the past. They won a national title with a Joe Burrow, right? He was a pocket quarterback. He could improvise a little, but, and guys like that in the past that weren't like Daniels. So they're going back to that. That offensive line gives them a shot. I'm actually, the more I watch them, not as concerned about their offense. Where I'm concerned about them is their secondary, Max. Yep. And when you look at this team defensively last year, Harold Perkins led them in coverage grade as a converted edge to linebacker last year in his first year playing linebacker by almost 10 points, right? This secondary was 92nd. They were 92nd in the country in team coverage grade. In their 3 losses, everybody wants to say, oh, Jayden Daniels, why should he get the Heisman? He didn't make the playoff. They didn't go undefeated. In their 3 losses, they gave up 142 points combined. It's just not good enough. It's just straight up not good enough if you're going to be in playoff contention, in SEC contention. They have to be better in coverage. They had a solid defensive line. Several guys get drafted. Harold Perkins can blitz from a linebacker spot too, but there was no reason that Perkins should have been leading them by far in coverage grade last year in his first year playing linebacker. They have to get better on the back end against some elite offenses. When you're playing the Ole Misses and the Alabamas and the Georgias and teams like this, where you go, you can't give up 45 points in all of your big games. You just can't do it. That's what you're averaging, giving up, I believe it was 47 points in your 3 losses. And even in some of their wins, you're getting in shootouts. You're getting in shootouts with Missouri where, one play at the end of the game made the difference. They did make a defensive play with a pick 6 on Brady Cook, but they gave up 39 points, I believe, in that game too. So that just can't be the standard. And we're so much more used to seeing LSU be better. They've got such a long history of having great defensive players, especially at corner. I mean, Patrick Peterson and Derek Stingley and Morris Claiborne and all the guys that we've seen back there. It's amazing to me right now that their secondary is as much a problem as it is.
Yeah, man, it really is. And you look at their projected depth chart right now via Our Lads, and they have a true freshman projected to start at outside corner. They brought in 1 transfer who's projected to start in Jordan Gilbert, but still it's kind of the same secondary as last year, man. So it's like – It's concerning. That was by far the biggest issue, and I'm happy you brought that up. I was like, oh, how did Jayden Daniels win with 3 losses? He led the best offense in the country. That offense was a national championship caliber offense. The problem was the defense, and the problem was that secondary, which he has no control over. So I completely agree with that, man. Let's go over Jayden Daniels' replacement, though, Dawn. That is Garrett Nussmeier. When you watched him, what really stood out to you?
Tell you what, a willingness to throw the ball downfield. This was, I think, of the 70 guys I watched, this was probably one of the 4 or 5 most fun ones because there's a small sample element to it, Max. But, you dropped the minimum down to 200 dropbacks over the last 3 years, okay? A 7.9% big-time throw rate. That's 3rd best in the country. So you're talking about a guy he is unafraid. He's a true pocket quarterback. He has not scrambled on a pass play a single time in his career. Granted, it's kind of a small sample. But, yeah, he's got a really good arm. he likes to take shots downfield. Like if they're going to keep this offense vertical, and I really love the addition of CJ Daniels from Liberty. He's as good a vertical, deep receiver as we have in the country. I think it's actually, the more I watch it, a perfect fit for Nussmeier. The fact that they have elite pass protection is going to help him a lot. Now, the most glaring thing, obviously, there's just not a whole lot of athleticism. Like, he throws better on the move than you might think, especially if he gets to rolling up through the pocket to his right. He can make some throws on the move. He's basically, whereas Daniels last year gave you over 1,100 yards, you're going to almost zero with Nussmeier. The rushing threat is just non-existent. He has to win from the pocket. But the one thing I do like, when you watch him, like let's say back in 2021 when he got some action, he's had action each of the last 3 years. His process has sped up, though. If you're going to be a pocket quarterback, we've talked about a Carson Beck making really quick decisions, a Shedeur Sanders making really quick decisions. Nussmeier is getting better at that. You can see the progress in his bowl game against Wisconsin that they won. You can see that progress. You can see quicker decisions from the pocket. If I have to get to a second read, I'll do it from the pocket or I'll step up. But the less that he improvises, the better. The fact that this offensive line will give him a chance, the better. But make no mistake, just like Daniels threw the ball vertically downfield last year, Nussmeier wants to do the same. And I think he's got a pretty good situation to do it.
I think, Dalton, we talk about it all the time, that these quarterbacks that come out of nowhere and all of a sudden become one of the top quarterbacks in the draft. I think Garrett Nussmeier could be one of those guys, dude. I really do.
I agree. I agree. I totally agree. I think it's his process, like the improvement in his mental process to not always be looking and to be going a little bit quicker just for the open guy, even if it's 5 yards in front of him, is big. If he can hold that for a whole season, we're talking about a guy like that. I'm not saying he's going to be like everybody's picking their own breakout quarterback, but he's on the list. I agree with you.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I was watching his highest graded throws. Granted, it's not a great way to look at tape, but I was watching some of his highest graded throws just kind of get a feel of what he could do. And he has some NFL freaking throws out there, man. So I'm really impressed by him. I'm so excited to watch him this upcoming season. But he's not the star player for LSU on offense, not even the star player for the whole team. That is Will Campbell, man. Will Campbell is a freaking superstar. And we already broke it down in our EA Top 100 video. He is tied for the highest rated player in the game, which is saying a lot, man, because usually in the video games, they love to hype up the quarterbacks, the running backs, the receivers, the corners, the sexy players out there, right? Will Campbell obviously playing left tackle, not a sexy position, but he's so freaking dominant that he's still one of the highest rated players in the game. Been a starting left tackle for LSU in each of the last 2 years. As a true freshman in 2022, 85.6 pass blocking grade on true pass sets, which if you don't, true pass sets are a really better way of looking at how good of a pass protector you are because it takes out a lot of things like screen passes, quarterbacks getting rid of the ball quickly, stuff like that. So 85.6 on true pass sets as a true freshman. Only Peter Skoronski had a higher grade on true pass sets than Will Campbell among Power 5 tackles. Skoronski was a number 11 overall pick in the draft that very next April as well. This past year, Will Campbell was 5th among all tackles in the country with an 84.9 run blocking grade. His tape, man, is as clean as it gets. Strong upper body, really good hand placement. Got to get a little bit of a better anchor, I think. But he right now is the best offensive tackle in college football and should be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft in April, if not a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. I think he's a really, really damn good offensive tackle we have right now.
I agree with you. I mean, at the top tackle in the country, a surefire first-round pick. And even looking at the defensive side here, you've got a guy who could potentially be a first-round pick, somebody we've mentioned here already, and that's Harold Perkins, our top linebacker in the country. Look, had a great year in 2022 as an edge rusher, had a very good year last year in his first year playing linebacker, really good in coverage especially. Frame's a little small. He's not going to be an elite run defender at 220, 225 pounds, but brings it as a blitzer. And like I mentioned earlier, it makes almost no sense that his coverage grade led the team by almost 10 points, and it was a top 15 mark among all linebackers. So athletically, he's everything you want. He could probably use a few more pounds, but this is a freak athlete that they have at linebacker. They could blitz him. They could cover him. He still has to learn some things even. Last year was just his first year at the position, but if he's not number one, he's one of the 3 or 4 best linebackers in the country, and he's going to be looking at trying to be, linebackers are going less and less in the first round nowadays. He's going to be looking to break that trend a little bit if he can get into that top 32 as maybe clearly the best linebacker in the country. But he's the centerpiece, Harold Perkins, of their defense, and he's going to be the driving force behind any success they have on defense.
All right, Dalton, let's get to the bottom line time now. Is Harold Perkins enough, man? Is he enough for that defense to become, one of something that doesn't hold this team back anymore? And what do you expect out of this offense this year? What is the expectation for LSU? Like, what is their ceiling, their floor? What should be their expectation heading into 2024?
The ceiling is going to be whatever Garrett Nussmeier gives them, right? Offensively, I think we can both acknowledge they're an offensive-leaning team. I think, could they be in playoff contention? Yeah. And generally you are in playoff contention, NFL or college or high school or wherever, because of your quarterback anyway, right? That's going to be the biggest story, is Nussmeier behind this line and gelling with these receivers, right? With CJ Daniels, with Kyron Lacey, with Mason Taylor, right? That's going to be the big story. Now, the secondary, again, is a bigger concern for me. I think playoff contention is realistic. I think a lot needs to go right. I think it would require Nussmeier breaking out to be that NFL-type guy. If I were guessing, the most likely outcome is another 8 or 9 win season. It is hard to think that you lost the Heisman Trophy winner, a receiver that went 6 overall, another one that went in the first round. Those 3 guys carried the best. Like, LSU's not going – we'll admit, they're not going to have the best offense in the country again. So either I need Nussmeier to be something close to as good as Daniels, which is rough, or I need the defense to significantly improve. They're in the boat of playoff is possible. Is it likely? It's hard right now to say it's likely, but it's possible. If you told me they had maybe a 10 to 15% chance to make the playoffs, I think that makes sense. Maybe they're a team that's a top 20 team instead of a top 12 team, but a lot of it's going to ride on Nussmeier. It
absolutely will, man. I think I'm in the same boat with you. I think 8 or 9 wins is what I'm expecting. I think their win total is 9.5. I'd probably take the under on that. I don't see them winning 10 games next year, honestly, but they should be able to put up points, man. They have a really intriguing quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier, we already broke down, elite offensive line, and some new weapons that I actually really like that I think, it's not going to replace Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., but it's going to really, really still be really good. They have a new defensive coordinator as well, Blake Baker, who we haven't mentioned yet, which I think is going to be big. The former Missouri defensive coordinator. He's going to have to make an immediate impact, man, in order for this defense to take a significant step forward. Or if not, man, every game for LSU is going to be a shootout then. Every single game is going to be a shootout because that defense, I am really worried about it. And they lost some key players, too, to the NFL draft as well along that defensive line. So, yeah, it's going to be that's the really big question is, can this defense get better, and how close will LSU's offense be to the best offense in the nation that we had last year? But that's what we got for our LSU preview. Once again, we are doing this for every single one of the 70 Power 5 teams, so make sure you subscribe to the channel for that and more SEC previews that we have coming out soon.